What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Open Great League, and the team that we're going to be taking a look at today is Shadow Tentacruel, Diggersby, and Pangoro. Now, I felt like both Diggersby, just being an extremely safe pick in this meta with Fire Punch for all the, your bugs and some of the steals, and then Ground for all the poisons. It's got some great coverage into the main meta. And then Pangoro has surprisingly great matchups against all of the top meta. So I was like, all right, let's throw this in. And if I'm going to put them on a team together, I need to run them in an ABB style team because they're both weak to fighting, and they also make a really good core with Tentacruel. And I was like, I've already looked at Tentacruel once. Let's take a look at Tentacruel, but with Poison Sting instead of Acid. So that's what we're going to take a look at today. A huge shout out to the Legend Trainer members on this channel, Big Burden, Andrew Pitten, and Moose Chew. Appreciate you guys. And without further ado, let's hop into these battles. All right. Into the first match, we have Shadow Tentacruel into Talonflame. This is a really good lead for us, and the opponent is staying in, and that's because Talonflame is often paired with a grass in the back to cover for their water and rock weaknesses, but being a water poison, looks like they're absolutely core broken, and they let the Scald go, and in comes Credilli. Now, Credilli will be able to make it to a charge move here, but I can live this, and if it's a Rock Tomb, I can instantly reset that debuff. I then come in with my Diggersby because eventually I want to align my Pangoro on their Credilli. I end up baiting out a Pangoro, not a Pangoro, and a Zoomerl, which is fantastic because our Pangoro most certainly does not want to see in a Zoomerl. If we can avoid a fairy in the back, that is absolutely what we want to do, and Diggersby is a great bait out to the Azumarill. I know I can also survive a charge move here. Diggersby is just absurdly bulky. Actually, that's a lie, unless they have Hydro Pump, which absolutely one-shots, but that's okay. I can now overfarm here. I'm over 100 energy at this point, so just firing off the Sludge Wave. I did get one turn lag, but it shouldn't matter if my opponent lets that go, which they do. Back in comes the Credilli, and now I'm just going to fire off a Scald to at least grab a shield for my opponent. That way I only have to fire or get to back-to-back close combats, and there's no way my opponent can get to 3 grass nods before that, so they're just going to resign the match, and we are able to take that win. Okay, a little bit of a tough lead in the next matchup, and kind of a core breaker to this team, Shadow Annihilate, because Poison Stings are resisted, but of course counters are resisted back to us. Rage Fist is neutral, but it's not enough to one-shot, but the counters after are. They're able to fully farm us down, but they have to commit a shield because we would get to another charge move. I am going to click the charge move on the Sampitai, and then I'm like, you know what, I'm going to grab both shields for my opponent if they're going to run out of this matchup boosted, because my backline can absolutely not see this Annihilape. So I'm going to full send it, and now in comes Diggersby because, you know what, I'm in such a bad matchup as is. I figured they were going to go for the CMP tie on either the close combat or the Ice Punch. I think it's only enough for the Ice Punch at this range, but and now that allows me to overfarm, go for the Scorching Sands. I'm not even sure if Scorching Sands will be enough to KO from this range, and it's not. Yeah, Shadow Annihilate just slightly too bulky. Hangs on, still able to make it to a Fire Punch. Fire Punch will pick up the knockout, and now it's what's in the back. It is a Lapras. Can I get to a charge move? No, but that's okay. In comes Pangoro. I have to go for a catch here, so I'm going to go for it. We get the catch. That is absolutely huge. A Soul Read catch at that. My opponent goes for the full honor charge, gets a Psy Wave through. That's okay. I can now fire off the close combat. This will be enough to KO the Lapras from this range. It's super effective, and it's stab from a glassy Pokemon. That picks up the knockout, and what's in the back? It is Furret, so my opponent was also ABB weak to fighting with a fighting answer on the lead, but we are going to take this matchup. Okay, into the next matchup, we have Tentacruel into Scizor. This is another tough lead, but we have two better answers in the back, so I'm going to immediately safe switch into my Diggersby. I watched for the catch, and I'm glad I did because they end up going into a Mandibuzz, although I'd be throwing Fire Punch anyways. The only thing that would have mattered is they would have gotten a free Air Slash through, which would have been a little bit annoying. But now that they're in with the Air Slash Mandibuzz, this is a pretty neutral matchup. It's a negative matchup for the Diggersby because Air Slashes are neutral. Are stab, whereas these Fire Punches are not, and they're going to have probably back-to-back charge moves at this point. They've overfarmed quite significantly. I'm not sure Diggersby will be able to hold on to 2. It looks like not quite. I end up going for a catch and baiting a Fire Punch for later, or banking a Fire Punch for later, that is. They end up coming back in with the Scizor. We know we can live one Trailblaze, so I will let that go. The question is, can I make it to another Scald before my opponent is able to get the resisted Bullet Punch farm down? And it looks like the answer is yes, but my opponent realizes this, so they throw on Stampede. I'm not at 1 HP, so I'm actually going to commit the shield here and see if I can grab either the last shield back from my opponent or pick up the knockout, and my opponent actually lets that go. So Scizor goes down, it's a Lapras in the back, and now in comes Pangoro. Pangoro, of course, does have super effective close combat here, but they have a move banked on their Mandibuzz. So I'm going to make a play here. I'm going to shield, and I'm going to read the pivot and the switch of the catch, which is absolutely massive. Aerial Ace is only neutral on the Diggersby. And it looks like, I don't know if they went for a full undercharge there or what happened there, but it looked like they did less damage than they normally would have. That allows them to get a few extra air slashes through. But I banked a Night Slash, so this will be able to pick up the knockout. My opponent didn't think they'd get to a move, and now I have to make it to back-to-back close combats. I'm not going to throw them yet because I can't lower my defense and let the Sparkling Aria KO. Sparkling Aria does massive damage, but Psy Waves are resisted in this matchup. They're double resisted on Dark and single super effective on Fighting. So one close combat picks up the knockout. My opponent realized I had back-to-back, so they had to call a Night Slash bait, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, pretty decent lead, Tentacruel into Greninja, and the opponent is staying in this matchup, which is a bit strange. This is a pretty negative matchup for the Greninja, just because they're way glassier. They end up coming in with a Golisopod. Golisopod will be met with a neutral Sludge Wave. Are they going to let this go is the question. They are. So I'm actually just going to stay in this matchup and let me take a charge move here because everything is walled. Aqua Jet and X's are both resisted, so I'm able to take switch and with not even give up a shield, which is fantastic. They end up coming back with a Greninja only to be met with a Scald, and now I'm going to pivot into my Pangoro, and this is an aggressive pivot for two reasons. I've seen this team before. I know that a lot of Greninjas have been paired with Dusclops in the back recently, thanks to a Home Slice Henry video. He actually had Clodsire instead of Golisopod as a safe switch, but making that read, coming with Pangoro, my opponent just immediately resigned the match, which means they likely had that Pokemon in the back. Into next match, picking up a pretty good lead, my opponent ends up going for a Scald catch onto their Jellicent, but they're unsuccessful, and now in comes Pangoro. Pangoro will get outpaced to the Night Slash, actually throwing on the CMP time. My opponent makes it to a Surf, but I will be able to outpace because even though they have 4-3 pacing, I have 4 Karate Chops, which is only 8 turns versus their 9 turns to get to a Surf. And I left this match in for one specific reason. I had perfect alignment. I was very likely going to win this game, and the game just completely froze on me. I think we need to bring more attention to these type of lag outs in GBL. They happen all too frequently, and I'm just over it. So I kept it in for that reason. But into next match, just losing Elo that I should have won. Into next match, we have a terrible lead of Marowak into our Tentacruel. I end up safe switching into my Diggersby and actually lure out a Wigglytuff, which is absolutely huge because our Pangoro absolutely does not want to see this Wiggly. I'm able to make it to back-to-back Scorching Sands before my opponent makes it to a Swift because they stayed in to chip with their Marowak, and they're actually going to commit to the full farm down, allowing me to get to a third Scorching Sands, and this Scorching Sands will probably grab the last shield. No, it's going to connect. We able to get the full farm down flip switch. That is absolutely massive, but now their Marowak has a little bit of extra energy, but I can align my Pangoro, and Pangoro has an energy lead, so that is okay. I do get 1 turn lag, which is pretty unfortunate because that means 2 Mudslaps actually go through there as opposed to the one that should have. My opponent ends up letting that go because they realize these Mudslaps are doing a lot of damage and they got an extra one in for free, so that's pretty nice for them. I'm able to grab a shield from my opponent. They end up going for a Snipe with a Bastiodon, but all I have to do is connect with 2 Shadow Scalds, and that 1 Karate Chop worth of damage is actually going to put it in 2 Scald range, which is fantastic. You're going to see maybe my opponent doesn't have the best XL Bastiodon. I know I can commit 1 shield here, but I have to save my other shield for my opponent's Marowak in case I lose CMP in that matchup, but now I'm at the back-to-back Scalds. This should be enough to pick up the knockout on the Bastiodon, or leave it at 1 HP. We get the Poison Sting farm down. I leave with a move loaded, and my opponent looks like they didn't even throw because with a shield in play, I would be able to take this win either way. So my opponent force quit the app is what happened there, but we are able to take the win. Into the next match, we've got Shadow Tentacruel into Mandibuzz. This is a pretty neutral matchup, and it's a neutral matchup I like because in this matchup, they're not expecting you to go for a Scald and a Sludge Wave in order to pick up the two-hit knockout. You're going to notice that 2 Scalds are not enough to KO, and my opponent sees that immediately when they survive that charge move because they're still in the green health even after a couple Poison Stings. But even throwing on good timing, I'm able to make it to a Sludge Wave right before they make it to their second charge move, and Sludge Wave, that's a much harder hitting move. It picks up the knockout. In comes a Bastiodon. I have 2 better answers in the back. There's no real reason I should stay in and connect with a Scald, but I'm going to connect with a Scald, and then I'm going to pivot into my Diggersby. And my opponent is actually staying in this matchup and firing off a Flamethrower, which is honestly incredible. This is going to do the smallest amount of damage you have ever seen. I'm now able to connect with a double super effective Scorching Sands before they're able to make it to another charge move. And my opponent's staying in this matchup, which is strange because their Smackdowns are resisted. And yeah, after that Scorching Sands connects, they just resign the match, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match. What should be a tough lead is not actually as bad as you'd think. Of course, our fast move is resisted and theirs is super effective, but the chances that my opponent are running Earthquake this season are actually pretty low. And if they're on Hydro Cannon Sludge, I can let this go. And I can survive a charge move here. However, they are going to have to throw their energy before I get to another charge move, and that's exactly what they're going to do, but I think that's exactly for Karate Chop farm down range. So I'm going to let the second Hydro go, I'm going to soft lose the zeros, and now in comes Pangoro. It looks like it wasn't going to, but they ended up pivoting into the Primeape. Here comes a neutral close combat. That one-hit KOs the Primeape. I'm going to reset that debuff. In comes the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz will be met with a Fire Punch. And now we have a Fire Punch Diggersby basically versus a Snarl Mandibuzz, and this is like an excellent matchup for us because it's not excellent in the fact that we're going to win it, but I can always save shields for my Pangoro, and they have no fast move pressure into my Pangoro. So the way I see this endgame ending is me just connecting with loads of these Fire Punches, putting them in range for a Karate Chop farm down, and then them just whittling down their HP in the process, so that they have no, they can't get any use out of their Mandibuzz basically. And I'm just talking nonsense because this is exactly how this matchup is going to go. It's just going to go on and on and on because we have the battle of some of the bulkiest Pokemon in this cup. I'm actually able to survive a Dark Pulse there and make it to another Fire Punch, so this either will grab the knockout or put them at 1 HP. We're actually able to snipe with the Pangoro, and as soon as that happens, my opponent just resigns the match, and we are able to take the win. Into the, I think, final match of the video, another Talonflame on the lead. This is a good lead, and this Talonflame is also staying in, so they're probably core broken in the back, maybe with a Grass. That would be my expectation. And then this one ends up shielding the first, which makes a lot more sense. We end up getting the attack fall, which is really nice. Some good RNG luck going our way. And we can always outpace here by like 1 turn. It's almost perfect with Poison Sting. With Acid, you actually don't outpace like regularly, I believe. Actually, that might not be true. But Poison Sting you definitely do. Yeah, able to make it to the Scald at the very last second. Maybe in the 2s the Talonflame can win it with Acid, but are able to pick up the knockout in the 2s. They end up coming in with an Amoonguss, and Amoonguss is actually going to outpace me here, so I end up going for a Foul Play catch there, but I'm unsuccessful. They end up saving that energy and now throwing it onto my Diggersby. Grass Knot, super effective damage, it's stab, and it's going to 2-shot my Diggersby, but I can connect with a super effective Fire Punch here. That'll do some okay chip, but they will be able to pick up the knockout on my Diggersby before I'm able to make it to a second Fire Punch. And unfortunately here, I can either come in, well, fortunately, I can either come in with my Pangoro because Astonishes are resisted. I just basically have to watch for a charge move here, but I will be able to outpace to the first. So if they shield it, or actually, do they even have a shield anymore? I can't remember. Yeah, they don't. So that just picks up the knockout. In comes a Credilli. This is an Acid Credilli. They're going to get outpaced. Here comes a super effective close combat coming their way. This is stab. It's going to one-shot, especially a Shadow Credilli, and we are able to take that win. So yeah, that is Poison Sting, Shadow Tentacruel. Let me know what you guys want to see this week. I kind of just scrounged this team together at the very last second and went on a little bit of a run with it. I got up to like 25-60 the other day with Barboach in the Little Cup, and now I'm just kind of like, okay, what do I do? Do I want to do some Little Cup? Do I want to do some Great League? Let me know what you guys want to see in this channel and which cup specifically you guys are more focused on this week, so I can kind of focus the videos in that direction. But yeah, that's gonna be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.